During a House Armed Services Committee hearing to discuss the budget for the Pentagon in 2020 or 2022, I should say, Matt Gaetz decided to essentially use it as an opportunity to continue fighting on with the latest right-wing culture war talking point. This time, of course, about critical race theory, seemingly the only thing right-wing media and right-wing lawmakers care about as Americans are literally suffering with poverty, with illnesses, with homelessness, and a whole host of other issues that they'd rather not discuss. So what exactly did Representative Matt Gaetz ask to Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense? Let's watch.
In my previous discussions with service members and particularly officers, the #1 issue that they raised to me with concern, often unable to speak publicly for fear of the type of retribution that Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeyer faced, they say that your stand down regarding extremism did not help our military, it hurt the military. And I want to share with you that perspective, that it caused service members to otherize one another. It impaired group cohesion. And interesting to me is that I've heard those sentiments most frequently from units that are majority minority. How should the Department of Defense think about critical race theory?
So that was the question. It's important to understand how he framed it. Lloyd Austin did answer the question. I think he gave a pretty great answer. But what really got a lot of attention, by the way, he asked that question to Lloyd Austin, who's black. I think that's a relevant part of the story, right? So here's Matt Gaetz essentially continuing on with his incredibly ignorant and uneducated theories about critical race theory, something that he knows nothing about. The right wing oftentimes will get asked what critical race theory is and they never have an answer because it's not really about the substance of the matter. It's about engaging in the culture war to distract from everything else that's going on in the country because they have no solutions, people. We all know this. What really got a lot of attention was how the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, responded. Let's take a look.
On the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look it, I do want to know.
Wow. I wouldn't have expected that exchange. Obviously, I'm very critical of the military and and when I say military, not the soldiers, but specifically what the Pentagon and the State Department has engaged in over the last several decades, the insane amount of our money and resources going toward a bloated Pentagon budget. But that exchange was pretty incredible. And Emma, before I go to you, I just want to indulge the audience in a moment that was just so nice to see. One more video for you.
And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed.
That was an open-handed slap, boy. That's what that was. That was Mark Milley, General Mark Milley, shutting down the ridiculous right-wing talking points that get recycled over and over again among GOP lawmakers and, of course, in the right-wing media. Emma, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it was incredibly gratifying, right? Look at that big head shaking itself. I mean, I obviously I'm in favor of a lot of what was said there. And I think the thing about critical race theory and the way you need to understand it is that it's really just a placeholder for Republicans to talk about any type of education that doesn't indoctrinate young people to being good little white capitalists who don't really question anything.
Right.
And don't question their place in the world and don't question why their black or brown classmates don't feel a certain way. And as you said, no one really understands what it is. And so anybody who may be on the fence, to hear that coming from somebody in a military uniform, it has an authoritativeness, and it's not, some DSA member, not saying that in any pejorative way, but it's somebody who holds that position and doesn't traditionally speak that way. I think it really does have a lot of value. And it's a good thing that someone like him is saying these things, because not just because critical race theory is just this entirely manufactured BS by Fox News that they forced into the national conversation, as they often do, where they've decided that this tests well. I mean, this is how they do things. They test it with a focus group. This triggers a certain amount of Republicans or some of their viewers, and then they decide to run with it, and that's what they've done. And then it goes downstream, and you have someone like Matt Gaetz asking these questions of government officials, which is just not at the forefront of anything that should be asked in terms of relevance to the American people. But also because then you get people like Laura Ingraham who are turning on the woke CIA and that other thing. That's what Tucker Carlson is. And maybe we should defund the military because this is how they feel. Deal. You are triggering the libs so much that it pains me to say that, right? You would really hurt my feelings if you cut military spending and cut from the CIA and cut from the FBI. You would trigger me so hard, Laura Ingraham, if you were to do that. I mean, please don't.
Yeah, I mean, and just going back to what you said about the authoritative nature of, General Mark Milley making that statement. No, the thing that makes it so powerful is that it's an individual coming from an institution that the right wing has spent decades and decades portraying as one of the most important American institutions, a powerful part of American identity. I mean, if you dare to criticize the Iraq war, remember the talking point that we would hear from the right wing was that you're not supporting the troops, you're not supporting the military, they're fighting for our freedoms. I mean, it's happened recently with Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem to call out brutal policing in this country. The response from the right wing was, you're being incredibly disrespectful to our military, to the soldiers who put their lives on the line to fight for our freedoms. And so to hear a person that represents that very institution essentially slap down Matt Gaetz and the rest of the GOP in their nonsense about critical race theory and their obsession with the culture wars was, yes, incredibly gratifying and certainly more powerful than what we would see in a tit for tat type debate in cable news, right, between two figures. So I love seeing that, and I especially love to see Matt Gaetz' disappointment and his shaking head. Hopefully he can shake his head to prison once we know what the true details are about the federal investigation he's facing for potential sex trafficking of a minor. He's being investigated for that. Let's not forget that point.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.